With Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny's theatrical run coming to an end, we can finally compare its box office results to the other 4 Indiana Jones movies, and decide whether it really is the huge financial failure that many are saying. So let's take a look at the box office returns for all 5 Indiana Jones movies, to see which film in the $5 billion franchise is the most successful.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
So in last place, earning less than a third of the second lowest grossing Indiana Jones film, is Dial of Destiny.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
It really is impossible to view Dial of Destiny as anything other than a colossal failure for Lucasfilm. With a much more somber tone, an 80-year-old Harrison Ford, and a gigantic budget, Dial of Destiny seemed destined to fail before it even came out. Which begs the question, why did Disney Lucasfilm make the movie in the first place? With some occasionally fun moments, an emotional performance from Ford, and an interesting time travel plot device, the 5th film in the Indiana Jones franchise actually has the 2nd highest audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On the other hand, it's got the lowest critic score of any indie film. With a budget of $300 million, Dial of Destiny made $371 million at the box office. The simple rule for profitability is that to account for marketing and a cut of the ticket the cinema gets, a movie has to double its production budget to start making a profit. So not only is Dial of Destiny the lowest grossing film in the franchise, but it's most certainly a massive money loser for Disney Lucasfilm. And on to number 4, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Is he nuts? He's no nuts. He's crazy.
Like Empire Strikes Back, Temple of Doom was a darker second installment from George Lucas. An adventure spectacle with Indy joined by now Oscar-winning Ke Huy Quan as Short Round, and Kate Capshaw's Willie Scott. Temple of Doom was too dark for many, with voodoo torture, gruesome rituals, and the antagonist, Mola Ram, as a cult leader with a passion for child slavery. George Lucas went on to explain that the darker tone for Temple of Doom was linked with his personal situation at the time. He was going through a messy divorce, and director Steven Spielberg had just broken up with his girlfriend. So Temple of Doom perhaps reflected the director and producer's negative state of mind at the time, which also possibly explains why Willie Scott was written as such an annoying character. Temple of Doom received a 77% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is the same score as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and an audience score of 82%. With a budget of $28 million, Temple of Doom made $335 million at the box office in 1984. When adjusted for inflation, Temple of Doom made just under $1 billion at the box office. Number 3. Sitting right in the middle, the 3rd highest grossing film in the Indiana Jones franchise is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull was stolen from a mythical lost city in the Amazon, supposedly built out of solid gold.
Almost 30 years after the original Indiana Jones trilogy, Crystal Skull takes place during the events of the Cold War. Indy reunites with ex-Flame Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen, and their son, Mutt Williams, played by Shia LaBeouf, who perhaps until Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena, in Dial of Destiny, Mutt was the most hated character in the Indy franchise. The trio fight against Cate Blanchett's Irina Spalko, and enter an ancient temple, discovering the presence of interdimensional beings. Perhaps an unnecessary addition to the Indy saga, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had a good conclusion, and some fun, nostalgic hits. It was certainly swinging for the pulpy fun of the originals, but most would say it just missed. Crystal Skull is perceived as a serviceable but mixed film that didn't quite reach the high levels of the 1980s originals. The critic score is a joint second lowest at 77%, and the audience score is the worst by far, with a 53% rating, which is between 30 to 40% lower than the other 4 films in the Indy saga. With a production budget of $185 million, Crystal Skull made $786 million at the box office. which when adjusted for inflation comes to $1,115 million. Number 2. The second highest grossing Indiana Jones film is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Junior? Don't call me that, please.
Indy is joined by Alison Doodie's Dr. Elsa Snyder, Salah, and his father Henry Jones, played by, of course, Sean Connery. In The Last Crusade, Indy searches for his father and the Holy Grail. Initial love interest Dr. Snyder turns out to be a Nazi, and the father and son duo eventually reach the Holy Grail. Indy saves his father, who quickly returns the favour as he tells Indy to let go of the Holy Grail.
Indiana? Let it go.
After surviving the collapse of the temple, they ride into the sunset, concluding the film and the Indiana Jones original trilogy in about the best way possible. The Last Crusade received an 84% critic score and a 94% audience score. Costing $48 million, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade made $474 million, which when adjusted for inflation comes to $1,168 million. So finally, on to number 1. The highest grossing out of the 5 Indiana Jones films that cross over 4 decades is in fact the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
The funny, high-adventure romp, Raiders of the Lost Ark was a fantastic debut for Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas. With ingenious set pieces, a charismatic lead, and top-tier directing, Raiders of the Lost Ark cemented Indiana Jones as a film icon. Indy and Marion are hired by the US government to find the Ark of the Covenant. Taking on Nazis and snakes, Indy and Marion eventually bring back the Ark to the US, where it is rather unceremoniously placed in a warehouse along with thousands of other forgotten artifacts. Raiders of the Lost Ark received a 93% critic score and a 96% audience score. With a production budget of $20 million, Raiders of the Lost Ark made $367 million in 1981, which when adjusted for inflation comes to $1,234 million.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
Grossing a total of just under $5 billion, Indiana Jones is most definitely one of the biggest characters brought to screen. Suffering a similar fate to George Lucas's other franchise, the fairly well-known Star Wars, perhaps the first 3 original Indiana Jones films are better critically and financially than the more recent additions. And there you have it, all Indiana Jones films ranked by their box office returns. Were any of these a surprise to you? And what's your favourite Indiana Jones film? If you enjoyed this video, then consider checking out the Ranked by Box Office playlist that should be on your screen now, and is in the description below. If you're new here, then perhaps consider subscribing to Film Club. I review all the major films and shows on their release, as well as the occasional video essay like this one. Next up, on the box office ranking playlist, will be all the Christopher Nolan movies ranked by their box office, including his most recent film, Oppenheimer. Thank you for watching, and see you again.